Walk out before I embarrass you, old man. That's what the kid said the second I stepped into the fluorescent wash of Powerflex Gym on a Thursday night that smelled like rubber mats, eucalyptus cleaner, and cheap cologne. My name is Steven. I'm 51, 12 years in Special Forces before I set the rucksack down and tried to learn how to live like a regular person in Denver. I've been glared at by warlords and lied to by politicians and stared down into the black of a doorway while I waited to see which shape inside was going to move first. But nothing tightens your chest like betrayal in your own house. Nothing makes the world feel smaller than realizing the person you fall asleep beside is building an exit with someone who curls dumbbells for a living and calls it wisdom. The kid with the voice was named Jake Rodriguez, 20-something and broad across the shoulders in a way that makes cell phones lift by reflex. A personal trainer with carved-out biceps, a careful beard, and the kind of swagger that only survives when it's never met a wall. He'd been training my wife, Diana, for 3 months. The session started at 3 hours, then 4. Then, I'm staying after to stretch, and we're going over mobility, and Jake says if I want to feel like myself again, I have to commit. Then came the midnight buzzes and the turned-over phone at dinner and the new leggings that could have been painted on. A husband notices, a soldier logs patterns. I stood there with a duffel slung on one shoulder, the cold out of October still sitting on my jacket, and looked around the room as faces turned. Office workers stopped pretend sprinting on treadmills to watch. College kids in flat-brim hats slid one earbud out. A group of women near the cable machine kept doing triceps press-downs while angling their phones higher, because drama burns calories you don't count. The air was thick with that prickly charge. You can feel it when a public moment is forming, and Jake fed off it like sunshine. You're not man enough for her, he carried on, planting himself in front of me, so our reflections settled together in the long mirror behind the dumbbells. Diana told me all about you. Said you've gone soft. Said you sit at home breathing through your mouth and pretending that's a life. He rolled his shoulders, caught his profile in the glass, adjusted his tank top so the logo was square. He wanted an audience. He wanted witnesses. He wanted video. Young men like that believe the world only exists if it's on a screen. I didn't answer. I walked to an unclaimed flat bench, set the duffel down, and sat. Unlaced one boot. Old habit. Do one thing at a time. Do it all the way. Make your hands slow so your head can stay cold. The leather laces were worn and familiar against my fingers. I've always preferred gear that breaks in instead of breaks. A few chuckles rolled out from the peanut gallery. Someone said, "He's leaving," and a couple of phones dropped a fraction as if disappointed. Jake stalked closer, mistaking patience for retreat. "Last chance, old man," he said, pacing in that half circle you see when a dog isn't sure if it's going to bark or bite. "Walk out now, and maybe I'll let her down easy when she texts me later." I tugged my right boot free, set it neatly beside the bench, and went to work on the left. The knot had swelled in the rain earlier and didn't want to loosen. Over Jake's shoulder, the gym kept moving. Someone dropped a bar and plates clanged. A trainer in a polo barked, "Spotter," and then quieted when he saw where the real show was. Jake kept talking because kids like him talk to fill the space where fear would live if they let it. "You know what she told me?" he asked loudly enough for the mirrors to hear. "She said you used to be a soldier. Said it like it was supposed to impress me. Cute story. This is Denver, Grandpa. We lived here." I slid the second boot off and finally looked up. Met his eyes and let mine go flat. You can say a lot without moving your mouth. The crowd sound changed by a degree. People don't know they do that, but they do, and phones lifted again. "You done talking, son?" I asked. The grin flickered. Only a heartbeat, but enough for me to mark it. He recovered with a snort. "You got something better to do?" 15 years earlier, I met Diana while she explained CD laddering to a man twice my age who couldn't understand why a bank wouldn't waive a late fee just because his grandson played t-ball with the branch manager's nephew. She was patient in a way that felt like strength instead of appeasement, clever in a way that didn't need applause. We married after 2 years, bought the beige house in Highlands Ranch with the deck that looks west at evening and the closet you learn to share even when one person thinks they don't own shoes. We tried for kids, and life had other plans. It happens. You build something else. She loved lists and structure. She loved order that made room for spontaneity and gentle mornings on the sofa with tea. And then one day she loved lunges. A new gym, a new program. A new trainer named Jake who said the word optimize like he had engineered it. She started telling me how to breathe. She started telling herself she was finding her fire. I wanted that for her. God, I did. But I also knew what it looks like when a message thread grows teeth. I'd seen the coffee shop thing, the unspooling laugh, the hand on the forearm that isn't a trainer-client touch, the leaning in. I'd smelled the perfume that wasn't her perfume. I'd bought the lie about morning sessions and counted her gym bag sitting unmoved in the closet like a dog that can't go into the yard because it's raining. Jake shifted his weight the way new boxers do, right shoulder loading with the punch before the brain has decided to throw it. I stood and tied my boots, stretched my back. The crowd, hearing the vertebrae click, laughed a little too loudly because the older man making a sound is a punchline on the internet they already imagined posting. But bones settle when they're used to work. So does breathing. So does vision. Mostly, so does choice. So what's it going to be? Jake asked, squaring up and angling his chin like a movie taught him to. You going to do something? Or are you going to stand there like you do at home? That line told me everything. He'd traded in the secrets he thought he won. He'd taken private sentences and spent them as currency. The worst kind of thief is the one who steals for attention and believes it's love. Jake, I said, tone calm enough that 2 phones lowered because drama sounds hotter than that. You been training my wife for 3 months? He smirked, religiously. And trust me, she's committed. Snickers puffed at the edges. He flexed just enough to tell his reflection he had. I let him. I let the room breathe. I let the air thicken with his certainty. I let him build his own height so the fall would make a better lesson. You know what 12 years in Special Forces taught me? I asked. He rolled his eyes. How to lie about the past. Patience, I said. And how to end a fight before it starts. Then I smiled. Not the neighbor smile, not the cashier's smile, but the one my team used to see when the plan had moved from the board to the door. He threw first. Of course he did. A right cross he'd practiced in mirrors until he believed it was fast. It was fast. It was also loud. Bodies talk before they move. That shoulder drop might as well have been a siren. I slipped left 2 inches and felt the heat of his fist as it went past. I touched his triceps as it did. Just a tap. Just enough to help his momentum find the steel of a weight tree. 45-pound plates rattled like a bell. Somebody hooped. He stumbled, recovered, swung his eyes around to gauge his audience, and save face. The smile tried to come back and couldn't. Lucky, he spat. Was it? I said, and the flatness under the words made 2 people behind him go quiet without meaning to. He dropped his level and shot for my waist. He'd hit 100 guys like that in 100 bar parking lots and gotten away with it, because gravity does work when it has help. I stepped aside, opened my palm against the back of his neck, and let him introduce his cheekbone to the padded headrest of a rowing machine. The sound, a compressed, hollow thump, pulled a laugh out of the room it didn't expect. He bounced and scrambled, hair coming loose, breath pulling high in his chest now. He came again because pride is a cruel general. A haymaker big enough to take my head off if physics forgot angles. I ducked, stepped through, touched his wrist, and walked him, with nothing but his own insistence, into the side of the leg press. The carriage shivered. Plates clinked. The manager had appeared and stopped 3 paces short, eyes wide, lips parted, tablet forgotten at his side. Phones everywhere. The room was a forest of lenses. How are you doing this? Jake asked, a thin line of blood marking the lip he'd split on the rower. By listening, I said. You're telling me everything a second before you do it. Stop running, he yelled, because men like him believe a fight is 2 hammers. He grabbed a 15-pound dumbbell and cocked it like a club because panic rarely chooses wisdom. Half the phones lowered. For a living second, it wasn't entertainment. I caught his wrist when it came down and pressed a nerve above the carpal bones with a thumb that knows a map. His hand opened because bodies do what nerves tell them. The dumbbell dropped. It rolled away and bumped a woman's shoe. She lifted her foot and didn't stop recording. Assault with a weapon. I said softly, not for him, for the lenses. You sure you want that on your reel? He froze. The color drained. The room exhaled as one organism. I let go of his wrist. He brought the hand to his chest without looking at it, which is a tell you learn in first aid classes and fist fights. You want to know the real lesson? I asked, lifting my voice just enough to hop it over the treadmills. Reading threats. Reading patterns. Reading betrayal. That word made 3 people near the cables turn toward the sound as if the syllables belonged to them, which is how you know it's the right word. I held the room like I'd hold a hallway. "I've watched you too," I said, not hurrying. The coffee that wasn't a consult. The texts at 1:13 a.m. labeled schedule that had 4 emojis and a photo of a couch. The gym bag that never left the closet. The shower she took before the shower she said she took. You thought I wouldn't see it. But you don't understand. Seeing is what I was trained to do after breathing. Jake's mouth opened. Nothing came out. He looked for exits and found only cameras. "She told you I was distant," I went on. "She told you I work long hours and come home quiet. She tell you why?" He closed his mouth, because even panic wants to be careful sometimes. "Because I've been fighting an insurance company for her mother's treatments," I said, and if there was a crack in my voice, only the part of me that still writes reports would say. "Because I've been on the phone with a hospital in Lakewood at midnight arguing about codes so they'll cover the medication that doesn't make her sick for 3 days. Because I sold my motorcycle when the deductible didn't move and never told her, because pride is a stupid thing that pretends it's love." Silence hit. It has weight when it lands right. Even the sound system seemed to pull its own plug. Jake blinked like a child waking up in the wrong room. I took my phone out, turned it face up, and hit Diana's name. Speaker. The ring trilled into the space like a coin dropped down a well. "Steven," she said, bright, efficient, the voice she uses when a meeting just ended and she's hoping the day will finish without surprises. "I'm leaving the office. Everything okay?" "I'm at Power Flex," I said, eyes on the boy in front of me. "Talking to your trainer." Pause. "We can talk at home," she said, voice flattening. "This isn't." "He says you've been very dedicated," I said, still not looking away. "He says he's man enough." He said it right here. "Steven, stop," she said. "Let me explain." "We're past explaining," I said. "We're in consequences." I ended the call. There was a shard of me that hated the theater of it, that wanted to pack dignity into a quiet box and take it down the stairs away from cameras. But Jake asked for a stage. I was giving him one. And sometimes you have to let people teach themselves gravity. Divorce papers were drawn up Monday. I said, "Steady. Serve tomorrow. Account split. The house is mine. Paid for before the marriage. Title clear. The cars are mine. Title's in my drawer. The joint account is closed and an accounting is ready for the judge. Every text is preserved. Every photo is cataloged. Your gym cameras will supply the rest." He stumbled backward and bumped the front door. The manager took one step sideways to clear his escape and then thought better of opening it for him. Panic is a mirror. You can see yourself in it if you're not careful. He found the handle and clutched it like it could erase minutes. "You set me up," he whispered. "No," I said. "You performed. I just didn't clap." He cracked the door, and the October air flared his tank top like a flag. He started to move through the frame and froze when he saw her. Diana rushed in, cheeks pinked from the cold and the running, hair pinned in the way she pins it when she wants it to look like she didn't try. She saw me, then him, then the room too quickly for the brain to file, and something in her mouth trembled before she caught it. "What is this?" she asked, but in the smallest voice I'd heard on her except the night her mother's scans came back. "Your trainer tried to embarrass me," I said. "It didn't take." She looked at Jake, who wouldn't meet her eyes. She looked at the phones and flinched. "Steven," she said, turning back, "please. We can talk at home." "We can." "At home," I said, "you'll find 2 envelopes. The first is for you. The second is the list of specialists in network who will treat your mother without making you choose between money and mercy. I've been on hold for 6 weeks. I've been getting names. If I lied by omission, I lied for love. If you cheated for a reason you told yourself was need, but it was want dressed in gym clothes. I'm done paying the bill for that." I turned to the manager. He looked like a boy who'd been handed a live grenade. "Check your trainer contracts," I said. "Morals clauses. Client fraternization. Liability. If you think you can out-argue the internet, you've never met a comment section when the story has a hero and a clown." I walked out into a wind that smelled like snow from the high places, and my hands weren't shaking when I zipped my jacket. The next morning, the process server handed an envelope across a bank lobby desk that had once felt like home to Diana. She took it with the numb politeness of a person who believes being polite will make a paper not say what it says. "My lawyer, Carla Yates." A woman who speaks in statutes and drives like laws were written for other people. Texted me the time stamp and a thumbs up emoji she would deny using if anyone asked her under oath. I spent the afternoon at the VA hospital setting up a follow-up for a guy named Miles who never stopped hearing helicopters when the furnace kicked on in January. The day felt ordinary. The day felt clean. I ran Washington Park at dusk and watched geese strafe the pond, their reflections longer than their bodies in the orange water. By Saturday, the videos had left the gym's small orbit and broken into the local feed. By Sunday, they crawled past the borders of Denver drama to that slippery surface where the internet calls something a main character for a day and then eats it. Hashtags do what hashtags do. Someone slowed my footwork down and drew lines on the screen like I was film study. Someone else took Jake's "You're not man enough" and turned it into 1,000 captions under 1,000 before and after photos where all that changed was someone standing up straighter. One clip stitched in side by side with a grandpa doing Tai Chi in a park and the words, "Don't skip defense day." Comments churned, likes piled into the wrong pile for him. PowerFlex turned off comments and then turned them back on because silence smells like guilt, and then turned them off again because sound looked worse. Yelp sprouted one-star write-ups about hostile culture and predatory vibe. Some true, some exaggeration, all effective. You can't fight a rumor when the rumor comes with a video and the video comes with a narrative arc. Jake DM'd me from an account that used to post shirtless sunset shots with captions about hustle. At first, we need to talk man to man. Then, you ruined my career. Then, you don't even know what she told me. As if that was a reason and not a confession. I didn't answer. There's a moment when responding is feeding, and I've starved bigger things than a boy's need for attention. Diana sent a longer message on Sunday night. It had the shape of an apology without the weight of one. She said she felt invisible. She said I was a ghost in our house. She said she found something that made her feel alive again. She said she didn't plan it. She said she didn't mean it. She said she didn't recognize herself either. Then she said, "We can fix this." The order of the sentences told the story better than the words. I didn't answer that either, not because I wanted to be cruel, but because the only answer that isn't an invitation is silence. Monday's meeting with Carla took an hour. She was crisp and impatient with woolly thinking, slid folders across a walnut desk the way some dealers slide cards. She'd handled soldiers who wanted to give away everything because guilt put its hands on their throats. She'd handled spouses who thought rage was a business plan. "We'll do equitable, not equal," she said. "We'll do facts. We'll do a clean cut. We'll support her mother because you are the man who supports her mother regardless of paperwork, and we'll make sure that support isn't a leash anyone gets to yank." I liked her immediately. People who aren't afraid of edges are good company when you're walking along one. The settlement came together fast because facts do. The house predates the marriage. The titles are clean. The retirement accounts are mostly mine with clear contribution timelines. There was no prenup, but there was a spine. We built an agreement that gave her room to move and gave me the quiet I needed. When she tried to argue that the internet humiliation entitled her to something extra, Carla laid a finger on a paragraph printed in bold. "Conduct. Consequences are not assets," she said, and then smiled so slightly it might have been a trick of light. Jake lost his job on Wednesday. PowerFlex issued a statement that said words like values and culture and commitment to client safety and temporary closure for reflection, which is the sound a business makes when it's applying to become a future location of something with a different sign. He applied at 3 other gyms and got 3 polite emails that said, between the lines, "We don't need a rainstorm." He tried online coaching. The comments kept attaching the clip of him spinning into the leg press. He recorded a video at 2 in the morning with red eyes and an apology that apologized for how people felt. The internet trains you in humility or it eats you. There isn't a third option. I ran more. I slept better. I spent a morning with my neighbor, Mrs. Pena, replacing a cracked section of fence between our yards. I spent an afternoon at the hospital with Miles when the medication made him sick, sat beside him until he could keep water down, told him a story about an interpreter who'd taught me that the softest men sometimes did the hardest jobs on the longest days. I found a rhythm again. Coffee on the balcony until the sun warmed the rail, an hour on a trail with pines leaning in like gossiping ants, a shower that didn't feel like washing shame off skin. 2 weeks after everything began, Diana asked to meet. She chose a coffee shop we hadn't used, as if new grout could keep old stains from bleeding through tile. She ordered chamomile and didn't drink it. She told me she was sorry. Sorry is a fine word. It just does less work than people wish. I told her she didn't owe me anything more than the truth inside the apology, and if she didn't have that, we could leave the word on the table and both walk out lighter. She cried and didn't wipe it away. She said she missed me. I told her she missed who we were when we hadn't learned what we learned. She asked if we were really done. I said yes. She nodded like someone who hears the verdict before the judge says it, and still jumps a little when the words land. I paid. We didn't hug. We walked out into different parts of the same air, and it didn't feel like cruelty. It felt like surgery. Jake caught me outside my building 3 Saturdays later, at dusk, when the sky over the city looks like someone set the horizon on low fire. He had a hoodie up and hands jammed into the pockets and the posture of a man who had practiced not looking like he was waiting. He stepped out from a column, and a defensive part of my mind mapped his feet and measured the distance to the glass door before I told it we were home. I need to say something, he blurted, too fast. Then say it. I said. I messed up, he said, and for the first time his voice didn't try to impress itself. I messed up bad. I thought. I don't know what I thought. I thought the world was a boom I could make with my mouth. I thought attention means truth. I thought if I want a room, I want a life. He stopped and swallowed, jaw clenching to keep his words in place. I'm sorry. Not for the videos. For how I walked into your life like it was a gym floor. For acting like I could take what wasn't mine. For using her to look at myself. I watched his shoes a second, and then his eyes. He held them. If a man learns anything after humiliation, it shows up in the eyes. Okay, I said. Okay, he repeated, a messy half-laugh breaking out like a cough. I accept your apology, I said. Don't ask me to forget. Don't ask me to say it's nothing. It was something. But you apologized like a man with empty hands, not one who wants to trade it for relief. That counts. He nodded, breathed out so hard his shoulders dropped. I'm working at a warehouse, he said. Nights. Lifting boxes feels honest. Good, I said. Honest fixes more than strong ever did. He reached out a hand, then half pulled it back, then left it there like a dare to himself. I shook it. His palm was rougher than it had been. Don't date clients, I said gently. He gave a strangled laugh and nodded once and walked away. No hoodie looks large on a man until a mistake makes him small inside it. I didn't tell Diana about that. It wasn't mine to tell anymore. I kept paying her mother's bills because illness doesn't care who signed what paper. I asked the hospital to send everything to me so she didn't have to watch numbers stack on top of pain. I started seeing a therapist because soldiers like to pretend a good run fixes ghosts, and pride is how the monsters get to keep your spare room. We spent an hour a week naming things that ran faster when they weren't being chased. Months slid into a spring that smelled like thawed soil and lilacs. I moved out of Highlands Ranch and into a 2-bedroom overlooking Spear where bikes hum past like a threat you learn isn't one. I kept a pair of boots by the door and a plant I forgot to water until I set a reminder and felt stupid for not setting one sooner. I bought a canoe secondhand with a scar down one side and took it to Chatfield before dawn where the water holds mist like a breath and the fish sigh under it. I taught a kid named Jordan how to tie a bowline because his dad didn't know and said the knot wasn't a big deal. Knots are always a big deal when you need them. I wrote a letter to myself and left it in a drawer for the next time I try to convince myself patience is weakness. Waiting is a weapon if you aim it. I underlined it twice, threw the pen in the drawer with the letter like it was a nail, and the words were aboard. PowerFlex reopened for a week under a new manager with a different sign and closed for good. The space became a dental office, and I laughed when I drove by because people will always find a way to pull pain out of a room. A clip of my night in the gym still circulates sometimes in a corner of the internet that loves watching a story loop. Every once in a while a stranger nods at me in a park and says, "Defense," and I nod back because that's a compliment where I'm from. A woman at a coffee shop told me her brother left a toxic job because the look on my face when I said, "We're in consequences," told him he could say that to his own mirror. I don't take credit for any of that. Stories do their own math. One afternoon, months after the ink was dry and the furniture in my new place stopped looking borrowed, I saw Diana by accident in the grocery store. She turned into my aisle pushing a cart that had a wheel that wanted to sing. We both paused at the end cap like the universe had asked us if we were sure. We said hello. She asked about my running. I asked about her mother. She said, "Thank you," like it was a heavier thing than it is, because sometimes it is. We didn't talk about Jake. We didn't talk about love. We didn't talk about who we might have been if we didn't get clever. At the end, we looked at each other the way you look at the house you grew up in when someone else lives there, with gratitude that doesn't need to be invited inside. We said goodbye and meant it like adults. People keep asking me if I miss the marriage or if I miss the idea. I tell them the truth. I miss the mornings when 2 mugs on a table didn't feel like a decision. I miss the way her laugh used to tilt and land on my shoulder like a bird that trusted my sleeve. I don't miss pretending I don't see what I see. I don't miss my own silence when it locked my jaw. There's a place up on Lookout Mountain where the city looks like someone spilled a bag of gold dots on velvet. I stand there sometimes with my hands in my pockets and my heels rocking on the edge because my body still likes to be near a line. The wind smells like snow even in June if the afternoon was honest. I tell myself the simple sentence that saved me twice and would have saved me earlier if I'd listened. Strength isn't the noise you make when you hit. It's the quiet you keep when you could. Jake learned it the way most of us learn everything, by breaking the thing he thought he could hold. Diana learned it at a cost she didn't plan to pay. I learned it again at 51 the way you relearn a prayer when the plane drops. If you were at the gym that night, you'd say the story was about a young man who thought muscles were armor and an older man who remembered muscles are only rope and rope is only useful when you know knots. If you watched it on your phone, you'd say the story was about a viral moment that flipped the script. If you lived in my house, you'd tell it differently. A husband set down his pride, picked up his patience, and waited with both hands open until reality walked into a mirror and heard the sound it made. I still keep my boots by the door. The laces are smoother now. Leather remembers fingers. Sometimes when the morning is blue and the city is quiet and the coffee tastes like courage, I untie them and retie them just to feel the habit. It's not a ritual. It's a reminder. You work slow. You breathe even. You choose your moment. And when someone tells you to walk out before they embarrass you, you smile like a man who already decided not to live on the floor of anybody's story.